Hey, Sam.
Oh, hey over there, Bev.
Oh, hey.
Oh, hey across the couch.
Right?
So weird.
It is so weird. I'm watching you pour your beer.
Now you know what that looks like. Because
Yeah,
you've been dying to know for over a year, right?
I have been.
And today we're making it super easy on everyone. Oh, now I'm watching her pour her beer. Because we're drinking the same thing today. And my God, it smells delicious.
Does it?
Yeah, smell it.
Mmm.
So we were both at Target today, and we stumbled across this gluten-free blueberry tea beer from Wild Ohio Brewing, and I was like, that sounds weird. I want to try it. So here we are.
Trying it. Well, and it's funny because the first thing that we both said when we read beer made without barley or malts, made with fermentable sugars and fruit juice was, that's not beer.
That's kombucha. Or weird-ass wine, maybe.
Yeah.
Wine, beer, kombucha, brainchild.
Yeah.
It's pretty good, though. What do you think?
It is. It's nice and sweet, and it's a nice change of pace of what we've been drinking all weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to mix it up. I'm a fan. I'm glad that you saw this.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, like we were just live on our Instagram, and as some of you might know, we went and saw My Favorite Murder yesterday. Well, last Saturday, I guess is what we should be saying now. In Cincinnati. So I've spent the weekend at Bev's place, and it's lovely, much lovelier than the photos even. And it's been a really fun time, and it was cool to see My Favorite Murder live. And now we're recording in person.
Aw, shucks. Yeah, it's been pretty awesome. We don't normally get to see each other because we live so far apart. But it's good to do this because it's a good reminder that we do actually like each other in real life.
Yeah, which totally helps because it would be super awkward if we're like, I kind of hate you in real life. We can't do this in person. We could never do this live together. No, actually, I feel like Bev and I travel well together because not only did I stay with you, we drove an hour and a half away and stayed in a very lovely Airbnb with complete strangers to me.
Yeah. Some of my friends, though.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. It was awesome. So welcome to We Drink and We Farm Things.
Hey! And that's Bev over there.
And that's Sam over there.
And this is the Farm Comedy Podcast that is happy hour for your ears.
We drink adult beverages, talk about farming things, and give zero clucks about not having the perfect farm life.
Yeah, it's not that we don't want our farms to be full of good things all the time, but the realities of farm life aren't always rainbows and sunshine.
Yeah, we like to keep it real with you and have discussions that include the mistakes we make, new knowledge we gain. We do our best to entertain you, and sometimes we go off on tangents.
Yes. Speaking of tangents, we record those sometimes separately and put them up on our Patreon for the whole world to listen to. You do not have to support us on Patreon to hear those. So for past BS sessions, go over to patreon.com/drinkandfarm.
Yeah, and this week we didn't do a BS session because we went live on Instagram instead. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I don't think you'll be able to watch it at this point. If I can figure out how to save it, I will, so that people can watch it later, but I don't think that's how the Instagram works.
No, but you can follow us on Instagram at drinkandfarm, so you can catch that sort of thing when it randomly happens.
Yeah, because we're not usually together, it's not going to happen that often. But while we were together this week, we also went live in our Facebook group, and that's going to be together forever. No, that was not what I was trying to say.
Bev has high hopes for us, and she's projecting them into the microphone right now.
Yes, that's going to be available for forever or for as long as Facebook is a thing. And you can join our group over on the Facebook. Just search for We Drink and We Farm Things. You have to answer some questions, but then as soon as you answer them and we see it, we will let you in.
Yes.
And then you can watch the live.
And please, for the love of everything, answer all 3 questions. Otherwise, you're just going to sit there in Facebook purgatory till the end of time. We know it's a little weird to answer questions, but we want to make sure that you're human and not a robot, and that you're of legal drinking age in your country.
Yes, because all of those things are important.
Yes. Also, we mentioned Patreon, but we didn't really explain it. So Patreon is a great way to support the podcast. We have levels starting at $2 and up. And for anybody that is like $2 and up, you get free content, some outtake material. We're going to be hopefully posting a session that Bev and I did, kind of a BS session that we did on Friday with some new equipment that we got thanks to Tina at Henny and Rue. So you can go over there and support us at the $2 level or above. God, it sounds like freaking PBS. At the $2 level or above, you get this. But if you are at the $5 level or above, we are going to send out thank you gifts in early April for active patrons that are charged on 4/1. So that means you want to go get that set up like right now so that you can get this super cool gift that Bev came up with a fellow, we'll just call her a farming artist.
Yeah, that's a good way to put that. A farming artist.
Yeah.
And the Patreon peeps have a new nickname. It's Patreon peeps in case
beep, beep.
I didn't make that clear. And the Patreon allows us to do things like upgrade our recording equipment. And we've also been buying mics to send to guests that are going to be on the podcast so that they have the best sound that they possibly can. We pay for the shipping of those mics and the shipping back to us so that our guests don't have to pay anything to be on the podcast. So it helps us cover some expenses that are related to producing the best show that we're capable of producing. And so for that, thanks.
Yeah. And we are encouraging you to go check it out. And if you're interested in doing that sort of thing, it's also going to help send us to Coop Camp, where we'll be recording a live episode. We're going to record a Coop Camp recap and hopefully kind of wander over some people that you may or may not know over on the Instagram or Facebook and ask them a few questions. So doing that helps us get there and do all those fun things and then come home and put it together for you guys. So check it out.
Yeah.
And this week, our drinks are sponsored by Jessica Hawkins. Woo!
Yay! Jessica Hawkins is one of my oldest friends. And by oldest friends, I don't mean in age number. I just mean that I have known her the longest. So thanks, Jessica. Cheers!
Cheers! And I do believe we have some follow-up this week.
We do. While we were editing episode 53. In episode 53, we talked about how both Sam and I had run out of hay. So we talked about hay and we talked about feeding the goats alfalfa pellets. So I just did a little bit of quick research and realized that feeding goats alfalfa is actually sort of a controversial topic.
Right. But I feel like most things in animal husbandry, as they call it, can be a little controversial because everybody does it a little differently.
Yeah, and we thought that this follow-up was a good time to just remind you that doing research is really important so that you can decide what will work best for your farm. Mm-hmm. And everything that we say here isn't necessarily going to be what works best for you either. So, yeah.
Yeah. So the link that Bev shared with me actually has a lot of conflicting information just right in the same, like the first page. It's amazing. But it was really cool because nobody was really being rude to anybody or calling each other out or anything like that. It was this is what I do. This is what works for me. But the key thing I did see is that if you are feeding strictly alfalfa and not some kind of mix, you do want to make sure that your bucks are getting ammonium chloride in their feed, whether that's just in the feed that you get or you can mix a little bit in. It's just something to keep an eye on. So that's kind of the overarching theme that I saw.
Yeah, that was a good overarching theme to recognize. But I also wanted to mention that I don't actually put ammonium chloride in mine.
Dun, dun, dun.
I just keep a baggie of straight ammonium chloride in my goat first aid kit so that if I see any signs that Mini Coop, he's my wether, is struggling in the bathroom department, I can dissolve it and give him a syringe full of it so that it
just
can
shoot
help.
him up.
Yep, shoot him up.
Yeah, we have currently for our adult goats, we have 2 wethers and we have little 2 who's just our little dude. So we have a lot of males that we have to be concerned about. So we the breeder that we got the majority of our goats from recommended that feed because it's already mixed in there, and she said with that she's never had any issues. So that's just kind of what we stuck with.
Well, and I just realized that by shoot him up, it sounded like give it to him intravenously. And that wasn't what we meant. We meant just to have him drink it from the syringe.
Yeah, Sam was trying to be funny and it kind of failed.
Well, I mean, we can't fault you for trying to be funny, right?
Again, E for effort. So today, the day that we record this is March 17th, which is St. Patrick's Day. And I noticed something kind of funny on Bev's counter when I was here. And we thought, hey, it's St. Patrick's Day. Let's talk about something Irish. And Bev has some potatoes sprouting on her counter. And I was like, let us talk about the potato famine.
We just said potato famine and laughed, which sounds horrifyingly inappropriate.
But to our credit, we just saw My Favorite Murder and we laughed about a guy getting ravaged by a pack of lions.
Yeah.
After he got done relieving himself in their enclosure. So, it's not a far stretch that we're laughing about the potato famine. But it is, in fact, not freaking funny because I knew very little about it before we started putting the show notes together today. And now I just feel really mad. So, buckle up. I hope you're already buckled up if you're driving. But buckle up to learn a little bit more about the Great Famine in Ireland. Cue bagpipe music. No, wait, that's Scotland.
Oh, shit. I was gonna say something and then I was like, I have no noises to add to this because I can't make myself do an Irish jig or do an Irish accent. So I guess on that note,
it's magically delicious.
Oh my gosh.
This is why we can't record in person. We thought we got off track just talking to each other basically over the phone.
Let's see what happens when we're in the same room together.
Yes. Okay. So here we go. So the Great Famine is also referred as the Great Hunger, and that lasted between 1845 and 1849. And it was arguably the single greatest disaster that affected the Irish history. So the famine was caused by the potato blight that was inadvertently brought over initially from North America to mainland Europe and had eventually made its way to Ireland during the summer of 1845. And this fungus is called Phytophthora infestus, or P. infestus, which is way easier to say. But it spread rapidly throughout Ireland.
Wait, did you just say that they were infested with pee?
Basically.
Okay.
That's what it sounds like.
I just wanted to
infestus.
make sure that was what I heard.
Or it's like somebody like really distinguished, just being like, P. infestus Junior. I don't know. But it's not super unusual to have crops that fail, and people thought it was just an isolated event. But little did they know this infestation ruined up to 1/2 of the potato crop that first year and about 3/4 of the crop over the next 7 years.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's a lot of it.
Yes, that's a lot. So it's not like an isolated incident. So initially they were just like, oh, it's just a shit year. It'll be fine. But there are these things called tenant farmers in Ireland, and I'll talk a little bit more of that later. In Ireland at the time was ruled as a British colony, and it relied heavily on the potato as a source of food, especially during the cold winters. So this infestation had a catastrophic impact on Ireland and its population. The other really screwed up thing that I learned was that certain grains, such as oats and wheats, were grown in Ireland, but they were exported by the government, as were cattle and pork. So in just 4 years, Ireland was screwed. And over 1 million of its population would die from the disease and starvation. And through forced immigration, Ireland's population was reduced by almost 2 million people.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I have a feeling I'm going to be saying that a lot during this.
Holy shit. You just need a sound effect. You need a button.
The holy shit button?
Yeah. So just to kind of back up a little bit about why this got so out of control, you have to understand what was happening in Ireland in the 1800s. So with the ratification of the Acts of the Union in 1801, Ireland was effectively governed as a colony of Great Britain until its War of Independence in the early 20th century. So together, the combined nations were known as the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. As such, the British government appointed Ireland's executive heads of state, known respectively as the Lord Lieutenant and Chief Secretary of Ireland, although the residents of the Emerald Isle could elect representation to the Parliament in London. So what does that all mean? Basically, Ireland sent 105 representatives to the House of Commons, which is the lower house of Parliament, and 18 quote-unquote peers, which is titled landowners, to the House of Lords, or the upper house. But it's really important to note that the bulk of these elected representatives were landowners of British origin and or their sons. In addition, any Irish individual who practiced Catholicism, the majority of Ireland's native population, were initially prohibited from owning or leasing land. They couldn't vote, and they couldn't hold elected office under the so-called penal laws, aka 0 clucks were given about the actual Irish people. So this is how we got in that boat.
Yeah. Literally into the boat. Literally by sending the things that they could grow and raise successfully and eat right into a boat and away to another country.
Yeah, like goodbye.
Goodbye.
The really interesting thing, though, is that the penal laws that we just covered were largely repealed by 1829, which was before, the famine onset happened. But English and Anglo-Irish families owned most of that land in Ireland, and most Irish Catholics were most Irish Catholics, that's really hard to say. So most Irish Catholics were to work as tenant farmers, which I mentioned earlier, which means they were forced to pay rent to the landowners to do their farm thing.
So if their farm thing failed, like as in the potatoes, then they had to pay them money and not create any food.
Right. So they paid to do their farm thing. The farm thing failed. And then to try again the next year, they'd have to pay again.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So this is when it really starts to get shitty. So the crops began to fail in 1845, and the Irish leaders in Dublin petitioned Queen Victoria and the Parliament to do something about it. And initially they did. They repealed these corn laws and the tariffs on grain, which made food such as corn and bread really expensive. So they removed those tariffs. That got a little more affordable, but still, these changes failed to offset the growing problem of the potato blight. So a lot of these farmers couldn't, produce anything. They didn't have food to consume for themselves. So the cost of other supplies began rising. Thousands died from starvation and hundreds of thousands more from disease caused by malnutrition. Super sad. Also, to complicate matters further, historians have concluded that Ireland continued to export those large quantities of food, primarily to Great Britain. So isn't that a FU? And And that, there was like no livestock, there was no butter, there was no nothing. And the research actually suggests that during that time, the exports were like increasing during the potato famine. So they had more of this stuff than ever, but it just kept going out the freaking door. Like they didn't have access to it.
That is just insane to me.
Mm-hmm. So the initial efforts to alleviate this problem, brought on by the failure of the potato crop, were slow to be organized. As we mentioned earlier, it's not totally unusual for a potato crop to fail. People lived on the reserves that they had, and many of them also ate the seed potatoes, therefore depriving themselves of their next harvest as well. But as the years went on, the crops kept failing. The world slowly became aware of the Irish people's problem. So, like we mentioned before, British government wasn't doing shit. They were super slow about it. And they basically were like, well, this is Ireland's problem. They can sort it out themselves, let it run its course, despite the fact that other crops continued to be produced and export while the people were dying. So to make matters worse, some landlords began to evict those tenants who could not pay their rent, sending them wandering aimlessly from town to town in the search of food. And the United States, despite being at war with Mexico at the time, actually dispatched 2 warships and sent supplies over to the starving population. So pat yourself on the back, America. You did something.
Woohoo!
Yeah, America!
Good job, America!
And then eventually groups like the Quakers set up soup kitchens in order to try to save the population. And then the government did this super fun thing where they were like, these people are already starving and disease-ridden, but we're going to make these things called workhouses for the starving. And it's that they have to work to get fed because they wouldn't just want to sit on their ass and just be given food, So they decided that they would start this program where they would have them build roads to earn their food when they're already malnourished and starving.
So starving people had to do manual labor, which put them into an even deeper calorie deficit in order to earn food.
That's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, that's like hunger at another level. I can't even imagine. It's like that show Naked and Afraid, but like way worse. Because that's like your reality for more than 21 days.
Well, and it's your reality like in a time where you don't get to just like return to comforts when it is over.
Right.
Holy shit.
There it is again. Yeah. So, a lot of people did leave Ireland and went to the United States because there were some ships available. The major port of departure was Cove, which incidentally was also the last port of call for the ill-fated Titanic on her maiden voyage.
What?
Fun fact. Yeah, and Cove in Ireland is spelled Cobh. So we did Google that. We did a little fact check before this. So there were a lot of ships, different shapes and sizes, but due to the lack of space and hygiene and amenities and general treatment by their crews, they were calling these things the dreaded coffin ships. And they would just kind of take you away from the potato famine. So as if being torn away from one's home and country was not enough for those suffering people, the voyage to the land of salvation proved fatal to many of those who were ill, as well as those who were not. So once on the ships, the immigrants were forced to endure the open seas and often unsafe ships that were originally built for transporting cargo back and forth to the new continent, aka America.
That sounds like it was a super, super comfy ride.
Yeah. Like, not first class.
Yeah.
But, maybe business class.
No.
Delta Comfort.
It would be kind of like riding in the cargo area of the airplane.
Oh, that sounds freaking terrible.
Right?
And, not only are you riding basically in the cargo area, people around you have typhus and other diseases. And due to the lack of hygiene, it wreaked havoc amongst the passengers and the crew. So in 1847, of the almost 100,000 people that sailed to Quebec, 5,282 died during the crossing, and a further 3,389 succumbed to illness once they had arrived and were put on the quarantine island of Gros Isle that was located just a few kilometers from Quebec City. So basically, they had this really crappy setup for this quarantine center. The healthy people were actually placed amongst the ill, exposing them to deadly typhus. And many of those people who had arrived were children who had lost their parents on the passage. And many of those worked their way east to west to other parts of Canada, but most of them came to Canada in order to break their yoke from the Empire, eventually fulfilled their long-time desire, and made their way south and crossed to the United States. So, freaking hooray.
So, wait a minute.
But,
here's the tagline for that journey. If you didn't get on the ship with typhus, you will get off it with typhus.
Basically.
And if you didn't get off the ship with typhus, then you'll get the typhus in the quarantine center.
Right.
So basically, get on this boat, it'll give you typhus.
And and if you're a child, your parent probably died of typhus along the way.
And we'll give you typhus too. You're welcome.
Yeah. So in 1847 alone, over 37,000 Irish had arrived in Boston, which makes total sense, right? And over 50,000 more to New York. So upon their arrival, after, you beat typhus, you made it over, you didn't starve to death, but you come to the United States, and the new immigrants were greeted by a government that was openly anti-Catholic, and signs advertising jobs also said, no Irish need apply. So, the conditions at the American quarantine stations were much better than Quebec, and those that went through them fared much better than they did in Quebec. But, you had a lot of racism happening in good old America.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
For the time period.
Right. I mean, they were allowed to do some jobs.
Okay.
Like, really physical and often dangerous jobs.
Like, they built the railroad,
They
right?
did.
Okay.
And they mined shit.
Yeah.
And they road built and construction. So really it's like, okay, your option is stay in Ireland and starve and build roads, or come to America and build roads and still have to find your food.
But you'll have more food, right?
You'll have potatoes again.
Yay.
God, I wonder if they could even look at potatoes.
I don't know.
You know?
We'd have to ask them that. And
Right.
unfortunately we can't.
Right. So back in Ireland, the potato crops didn't fully recover until 1852. And by then the damage was done. Although estimates vary, it is believed as many as 1 million Irish men, women, and children perished from the famine. And another 1 million immigrated from the island to escape poverty and starvation, with many of them landing throughout North America and Great Britain. But back in America, over the years, the Irish, with their hard work and perseverance, started becoming successful and affluent in their new land. They are now amongst the highest average income earners in America. Many of them went on to become business tycoons, such as Henry Ford, great military men, and politicians. The best known is John F. Kennedy, who was elected in 1960, becoming the first Catholic Irish American president in the United States. His grandfather had immigrated from New Ross, County Wexford, in 1847. The end.
Wow.
Yeah, did you feel like you went on a journey?
I did. I felt like I went on a very sad and awful journey, but at the same time, a very eye-opening journey, because I realized I didn't actually know anything about the potato famine. Like, talking about the potato famine is one of those, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like one of those great things that everybody references just in conversation, but without fully understanding what it really was and what it is that they're referencing.
It's really screwed up.
Yeah.
From so many angles. It is so screwed up. ugh, screw you, Great Britain. You suck. Now I understand why they're so angry in Peaky Blinders. Like, I get it now. And that was like in the 1900s. Like, you're still going to be salty about it.
Yeah.
You know?
I would imagine so.
It makes so much sense. Like, the whole way, like, for people that don't know, Ireland's broken up in two parts. There is a part that is primarily Catholic, and there's a part that's primarily Protestant. So it's really interesting to learn more about the potato famine part of it, because that was before a lot of like the Irish Revolution and the IRA and all that crazy cool stuff. Well, I shouldn't say cool stuff, but really intense, interesting stuff to learn about was happening. So it's just, I love Irish here. I love Irish history. I took an Irish history class for theater and went there for a week and fell in love with it. So definitely go to Ireland if you ever can. It's freaking sweet.
It's on my list of things to do someday. And also, I would say that while this story didn't have like, I wouldn't say that it was all worth it in the end. It does have a semi-happy ending because we got John F. Kennedy
and
Henry Ford, both of whom changed America.
Yeah.
I mean, for better or worse, depending on what you think of cars and John F. Kennedy.
Right.
But yeah.
I mean, he didn't have a great ending.
No, he did not. But I definitely wouldn't say that it was worth it, but that's a fascinating piece of history.
It's like glass half full for America. You got two really important people out of the deal that you wouldn't have gotten in the first place.
And there's probably more. They just weren't listed in the article.
Like in the two articles that I researched before this.
Yes.
And was like, wow, this is making me really fired up. And I want to tell people about this. So hopefully we don't lose you there. But it is like a farming thing, though, because it's like that farming issue and this simple fungus came over and screwed things up for so long for people, and it literally killed people.
Yeah, and we like to call this our very first installment of Drunk Farming History.
Yes, which is why we pre-gamed. But trying to say like Irish Catholic when you're a little buzzed, kind of tricky. This is why we don't drink a lot before we hop on.
Yes.
We want you to be able to understand us.
Exactly. Cure resting beak face in your flock with Grubblies.
The ladies love a delicious snack, and we love the healthy feathers and strong eggshells.
And who doesn't love a Grubblies happy hour?
That's Grubblies for your chickens, an adult beverage for you. Don't mix the two up.
And save 15% on your first order of Grubblies using code FARM15 at grubblyfarms.com.
So, now part 2 of the episode, where we talk about what the hell Bev's doing with potatoes on her counter.
So, I have potatoes from the Amish that are starting to sprout.
Ooh, that's so fun. It's so funny because Orion like went to the counter. He's like, what is my mom doing with these? Is she trying to grow potatoes? And I was like, I think that's what's happening over there. Yes.
Yeah. So they're potatoes that I ordered from the Amish. And I don't have a proper root cellar. If you properly cellar your potatoes, it's supposed to prevent the eyes from forming and shooting out sprouts. But I was just keeping them on a paper bag, like on my counter, and I've just been ordering them every few weeks.
Okay.
So I wasn't really trying to root cellar them, but I'm assuming that either the temperature that I keep the kitchen at, which is sort of ridiculously high because I'm cold all the time, so we keep our heater a little warm.
Well, and I'm sure it fluctuates with the, stove being on and off, or the ovens, and then the dishwasher, and,
Yeah, so the kitchen probably actually is the warmest room in the house because of all of that stuff. So warm temperatures and sunshine are basically what it takes to force potatoes into starting to seed, which is what it's called when the eyes start forming and it starts to sprout.
Right.
Yeah. So any potatoes that show bulging sprouts have broken dormancy and are actively converting their starches into sugars and other nutrients that are needed for growth. And have you ever heard that thing where they say, like, don't eat green potatoes because they're poisonous?
Yeah.
Or like when you peel the skin off of potatoes, if they're green, you're supposed to just throw them away.
Is that bullshit?
Well, so it's kind of bullshit because you can
Oh.
eat slightly sprouted potatoes just as long as they feel firm and you remove the sprouts first.
Hmm.
Because the green potato skin and the potato sprouts contain something called solanine, which is a bitter compound that can make you sick. So I don't think it would kill you if you ate it. Maybe if you ate too much of it. I don't know. I really didn't research solanine. So I didn't feel like I needed to go that deep into it.
Right.
And I think that's one of the reasons why they tell you not to feed raw potatoes to your chickens. Have you ever heard that?
Oh, no, but we don't keep a lot of potatoes in the house, especially right now.
Yeah, that makes sense because they're not really, I mean, well, so they're a popular crop to eat this time of year because if you have a root cellar, then it's something that you've held over from the
Mhm.
fall and you
Mhm.
probably still have. But if you don't, then yeah, probably
Yeah.
not. And I think potatoes from the grocery store, or not all of them, because I don't want to say every grocery store does this, but I think that they're sprayed with
Oh,
something
yeah.
that prevents growth, just like garlic is from the grocery store, because that makes sense. Because otherwise,
Right.
if you buy it and you store it in your sunny kitchen window, you'd have potato sprouts in like 4 days.
Right.
So, I mean, it makes sense that they would. So, there's no right way to plant sprouting potatoes, but here's what I'm doing. And there will be a link in the show notes to growveg.com. Yeah, that's right. Which is the blog that I got a little bit of this information from, so that you can look up a little bit about sprouting potatoes if you've never heard of this or didn't know that this was the thing. So, when you see that your potatoes are starting to sprout, you want to cut the sprouts off of your potato and place them into a shallow dish of water. Some people say that you can just put them straight into the soil. I like to put them into the shallow dish of water so that they can start to root. And that's when the roots start to actually grow out of the sprout area to drink the water up. And when you cut the sprouts off of the potato, I always leave just a little bit of like the quote unquote mother potato on. But some people don't do that. Some people do because the mother potato does give the sprout like a larger chance of getting like disease or funk or rot
Oh.
because it's a bigger area that could
Okay.
go bad. So the less mother potato, the better. I probably always give it just a little too much because I like giving it more space to grow out
Okay.
roots. Because I
Yeah.
figure they didn't cost me anything. They were potatoes I was going to eat. So I'll just chuck them if they rot and I'll start again with the next batch that sprouts. When the roots start to grow, I fill paper bags, like brown paper bags, with some potting soil. Not a lot because it doesn't need to be super deep because as it starts to grow, you'll be mounding the soil up under the plant so that the plant has roots to grow the tubers. But you plant the sprouts into the soil and put it under grow lights or in a south facing window so that they can continue growing until all danger of frost has passed. So that will be a different time depending on what growing zone you live in. Once the danger of frost has passed, you can plant those paper bags directly into mounds in the garden because the brown paper bags will compost down into the garden. So they work as sort of like a compostable potato pot, which is pretty cool. And if you want to grow potatoes that are as large as your face, you've got to give them about 14 inches of space between plants. Otherwise, they get too crowded and they can't grow the big potatoes you crave.
Like the Irish people missed.
Yeah, well, now that's kind of sad and instead of funny.
Are you having potato envy, Ireland? Bad jokes. Okay, I'm done. Time out for
Bad
Sam.
jokes.
She's sassy when she drinks tea, beer.
So you can also plant potatoes into grow bags. And in fact, I've got a bunch of them. They're by a brand called Root Pouch, and we'll stick a link to those in the show notes. I really like them because when they're filled with like a good potting mix and compost and then whatever you want to plant, they're really light to like lug around and move. And they're also made like specifically to let like the roots grow and whatnot. I don't know that they work the best for potatoes because potato tubers grow best when they're kept cool, which is why most people plant potatoes directly into the ground.
Oh.
Yeah, so we have really heavy clay soil here, which is also not super ideal for potatoes. And I don't have an area that I've been like amending specifically for potatoes. So I think this year I'm going to try to do just a little bit of both to see how they turn out. Or maybe I'll like take the bags and because they're so light, just move them around into like the cooler areas of the house. Or possibly if I keep them in the grass, they'll stay cooler because they'll be like right up against the ground as opposed to like a high deck. But you've seen those like potato grow bags, you know, like the infomercial for it. It's got like a window on it that you tear open and all these potatoes just like pour out of it that aren't attached to anything because, yeah, that's how potatoes grow.
I don't think I've seen that infomercial.
You haven't seen that?
What the hell? That sounds so bizarre.
Yeah, it is. It's super bizarre. It's just like, it looks like a laundry basket, but it's got a window on it and it's filled with dirt and there's all these potato vines coming out the top of it and you just like rip open the window and then the potatoes start to fall out.
That sounds really gratifying though.
It does sound super gratifying.
But messy.
I've picked potatoes out of, or dug potatoes because you don't pick them because they're grown under the ground. But I've dug potatoes out of my neighbor's garden and they were not that easy to just like get out. No. You know, because they're sort of attached to each other by like a I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, like a maze of things, you know. It's like the mother plant and then like all the little fingers coming off and then like the potatoes just like all over the place.
It's like a mothership but has little pods.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it's like. So that's all I got about potatoes. Next time they sprout on your counter, give it a shot. Let me know how you do it because everybody does it a little differently. That's just how I've always heard to do potatoes. So that's the way that I do it. I like to let them root in the water first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never really done anything with potatoes, so I learned something today.
And the farthest I've ever gotten is the letting them grow roots. I usually forget to water them and let the dish run dry on accident and then they die. So this year I'm trying to do better.
Yeah, just get closer to that whole actually growing a whole potato thing.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we have a farm story this week, but it's non-listener, and this one's not going to make us cry like last week's did.
Nope, it's not.
No, and somebody, I tried to look it up, but I couldn't find it. Somebody posted this in our group on Facebook, We Drink and We Farm Things. So I'm sorry for not shouting you out because I literally searched the group. I could not find it. Like, screw you, Facebook algorithm. It even does weird shit in our group sometimes. But the headline is Fox killed by gang of chickens after intruding on French farm. Period. That's it. So basically a gang of chickens at a French farming school this past week was suspected of killing a fox that had snuck into their coop in the middle of the night. Which, how badass is that?
It's so badass that I'm a little terrified to accidentally get trapped in my chicken's coop.
Oh, yeah. But I think it's important to note that the fox had entered a coop containing 3,000 hens.
That's a lot of hens.
Yeah. And after the fox had entered, an automatic hatch door closed and trapped him inside. So he kind of had it coming. You know? Yeah,
he did.
You know, that whole fox in the hen house thing, like, that fox really got it like turned around on him.
Like for the first time, a fox in a hen house was a good thing for the hens.
Yeah. And apparently the head of the farming school told the news agencies that a herd instinct kicked in and the chickens attacked him with their beaks. Which, if you've ever been like pecked in the face or, you know, like spurred, I mean, obviously these are all hens, but like chickens can do some damage.
Yeah, I've had a chicken almost peck me in the eye when I wasn't paying enough attention while I was carrying it around. Like it just got a little tired of me, and it was probably just trying to give me like a, hey, you,
put me down.
Stop that. But it aimed for the lightest thing on my face, which was my eyeballs.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah, I've seen some people post and say they got my eye when I'm trying to take a chicken selfie Sunday. It's a hazard.
Yeah, totally. Totally chicken selfie Sunday hazard.
Yes. So the body of the fox, which was believed to be 5 or 6 months old, was found by students the following day with blows to its neck and blows from beaks. So the whole mass of hens like hang out, and the fox was panicked because of the big number, and the hens were like, oh, hell no. And they took them out. Apparently, this farm is located in Brittany in a northwestern region of France, and the farm houses 6,000 chickens who roam freely on a whole 5 acres. So that's a lot of chicken shit.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of shit. Their grass must be, pretty okay with that much poop, but maybe not. I don't know.
I thought you were going to say their grass must be like way greener, but instead you said pretty okay. And
maybe that's what the fox said. She was like, what does the fox say?
Meow, 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 meow. No, I didn't do that right.
But yeah, so that is our farm story this week. A pack of hens took out a fox, which is pretty awesome. Like, go chickens.
Yeah.
Rock.
In case anybody was wondering whether chickens rocked, I think the answer to that is unequivocally yes.
Yes.
I
mean, I've seen my little savage chickens running around the yard with a mouse in their mouth. So I know they have it in them.
Yep.
It's just a pack mentality that needs to kick in to take out bigger prey.
I've always said that I hope I never pass out in the chicken coop.
Oh, yeah, because you're at least getting, like, pooped on a lot.
I mean, at minimum, right?
Yeah. They're, like, very carnivorous, though, as we've learned the past year or so.
So that was a non-listener farm story. But if you have a farm story that you think fellow listeners could laugh at, learn from, or just warm their hearts, we want to hear it. So send them to us via direct message on IG,
Instagram,
or email them to drinkandfarm@gmail.com.
Yeah. So that was like the bulk content of our episode today. We hope you enjoyed the little trip through Irish history.
Yeah.
And additional information.
And potatoes.
I
mean, if we had thought of this before now, we would have released this in time for St. Patrick's Day, but we thought of it like just now.
Like 4 hours ago. And we're like, well, shit. Let's get to work.
We should do that because it is St. Patrick's Day as we record this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we've been mentioning Coop Camp quite a bit on our podcast. And just a reminder, those dates for that are June 7th through 9th. And it's going to be right outside of Indianapolis in a town called Dansville. So you can go to betajeans.tv/coop-camp.html. Bev will put that in the show notes. And you can hang out with your favorite podcasters.
Because that's us, right?
We hope. Otherwise, that's super awkward.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
And take our survey. You can give us anonymous feedback. There's a link in the show notes. And thank you to whomever did it this last week because we got several of them.
Yeah.
So keep it up. If you're thinking to yourself, I have not taken that survey, so she's not talking about me, go do it. Yeah. Thank you. Please and thank you.
Use nice words.
Nice words, please.
Constructive criticism goes a long way. We've already mentioned our Facebook group several times. Make sure you go join that and review us in all of the places. And if you really, really like us, download the episode when you listen and hit that subscribe button. We've gotten a few more iTunes reviews, which just makes us like deliriously happy. So if you want to just thrill us, and it actually helps our rating on on iTunes, so more people find us. Go leave us a review over there or wherever you listen. I just check iTunes though. I won't lie. I can't download all the apps and check them all.
Well, I think iTunes is the only app that you can actually, well, no, maybe Spotify and Stitcher. You can probably review on both of those.
Maybe.
You can't in Podcast Addict, which is what I use because I'm an Android user. You can also leave us a review on Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We like those too.
That's helpful as well. But
Yeah.
iTunes is the most helpful place for sure.
Yes.
And we sell merch. Sam makes all sorts of awesome things, and you can buy them at our website, which is drinkandfarm.com/shop. There's all sorts of great beverage holding containers for safely drinking and farming. And there's stickers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exciting stuff.
Yeah. And we also open up a second merch shop for stuff that I don't want to make or don't have time to make, or just don't have the skill set to make. So just go to drinkandfarmmerch.com and check out the shirts, hoodies, and camping cups in there. They're super cute. And if you go buy a t-shirt, that actually helps us get to places like Coop Camp.
Yeah. When you buy any of our merch, that actually supports us as well.
Yes.
Well, thanks for listening, guys. This was awesome. And it was our first time recording an episode together.
So
just
weird.
in case you forgot.
It was a little weird. I was like, do I make eye contact?
So
I'm
it
not
was
used to
funny.
this.
It was a little weird, but all of the faces that you made are exactly what I pictured while we're recording, right?
That's funny.
Like
Yeah.
the hand gestures and the way that we move our heads, like, yeah.
We're pretty similar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like looking in a mirror, but
Like a
brown
mirror.
hair. Brown hair.
Like a blonde's mirror
Ah.
over there. So drink
Farm
and give zero clucks. Bye, guys.
Bye.
I wondered if we'd be able to say it at the same time, actually, if we
That
were
was
in the
so much
same
easier.
room. So much easier. Because
Yes.
during a live show, I was like, holy shit, I can't.
Well, the crowd would
edit.
say, and give zero clucks.
Our crowd wouldn't because
Yes,
they
they
wouldn't
would.
know.
Yes, they would. Well, not at Coop Camp, but
Yeah.
maybe elsewhere.